I speak to docs all the time. Well, yeah, I do some neurologically based stuff over here, and then I do my chiropractic. Guys, it's the same thing. You perform an adjustment, you're affecting brain function.
Well, hello, everybody. Dr. Ron Oberstein, president of Life Chiropractic College West, coming at you with another one of our Life West leadership lines. And I'm so excited to have you. And I am just as excited to have our guest today, Dr. Clint Steele. Hi, Clint. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing amazing. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it, Dr. Ron.
Absolutely. And I think, people probably know Clint, but if you don't, I just want to give you a hint about him. He is a 93 graduate of Logan College of Chiropractic, practices in Maine, Portland, Maine, been there for 29 years, been practicing 26 years. So we'll get into the story about that 3-year gap, hopefully. Doing some really cool stuff. He's been involved in Maine, the Chiropractic Association and things like that, but doing really cool stuff with the brain. He's got a company called True Chiro. Their motto is pain to brain, meaning, moving from pain-based models to brain-based models. And so we'll get into that and we'll talk about that stuff, but really, really, really cool stuff. So, Clint, we're going to dive in, man. We were just together in Boise, Idaho last weekend, and I've known him. He's been in my president's circle for years. He's been at the college. He says that he's adopted, that Life West adopted him, and we're happy to have him. But let's talk about this, Clint, because, you talk about moving from the pain, from the pain-based model, right? And I think that everybody, look at even a vitalistic principle chiropractor, you get people coming with pain, you got to deal with it, obviously, but you want to be able to move them, right? And get them to the point where they're actually starting to understand chiropractic and nervous system and neurological balance and stuff. And, you seem to have mastered that. So share a little bit about that. And let's talk about that.
Yeah, ultimately, first off, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and always great to spend time with you, man. Any of your listeners that have had a chance to spend time with you, man, we sat next to each other at dinner one night, and you just have a great spirit, man. And I love what you're all about. So first off, thank you for that, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, this whole thing, when I ask chiropractors, listen, what system ultimately is chiropractic about? 99% of chiropractors say the brain and nervous system. And yet you ask them what percentage of your patients are coming in to see you for pain. And again, majority of them say 95%, right? So there's an incongruency there, right? We've got to change this model for sure.
Yeah. And when you look at the model, listen, you're all over the country lecturing. You've got all kinds of conferences that you're doing, things like that. When you look at the model and you start seeing the pain model, right? Because obviously, there's this perception out in the public around, chiropractors are back doctors, right? Because we have a spine up or we have whatever. It'd be really different if we had a brain up, wouldn't it? Like a freaking huge.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. In fact, I just did a post. For those of you that don't follow us in the Chiropractic Truth Tellers Facebook group, I just did a post because right now I'm traveling. You can see I'm in a hotel right now in Burbank, California. I just left Boise, Idaho, right? And so I'm going through and I'm visiting brain-based chiropractic offices. And I just did a post today on what does your office say to your practice members, right? And so I'm posting pictures of these brain-based docs that have things on the wall like, a brain out of balance leads to a body out of balance, or, posters of brains instead of spines, right? And so this is the incongruency. We're talking brain and nervous system, but we're showing spine.
Right.
There's an incongruency there.
Right. A big one, and the conversation has come up for years, right? Like about where would BJ Palmer be right now, right? If he was like, in chiropractic for 127 years, right? Kind of deal, and I'm convinced he'd be in the brain. I'm convinced. And once again, we've got to correct the subluxation to allow the information from the brain to get down, but we've got to have this thing functioning at a level where we're just, we're Ferraris and not like, and not Yugos or even Corvettes, I'd rather be a Ferrari, right?
Absolutely. Well, it comes back to the safety pin cycle, right?
Yeah.
You talk about BJ and Didi and talking about the safety pin cycle. We can correct subluxations all we want. Let's do that. But if you don't correct what's going on in the brain at the same time, what's the output going to be? Yeah. Right. same thing. If you correct brain, but you're not correcting subluxation, again, the safety pin cycle. But going back to what you said, Dr. Ron, was, if BJ were here today, and you can see 1920s, 1930s, his instrumentation that he was involved in at the time, I believe, was trying to measure brain and nervous system function. We didn't have the ability at that point, but today we do.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm totally on board with you. I totally agree.
Yeah, and I think what people don't understand too, like you watch Heidi Havoc's, and you see her research, and she's talking about adjusting the cervical spine, increases the frontal cortex. It's not like you've got to work on the brain. There's certain things that probably need to be worked on, but just by correcting subluxations, you are influencing the brain. In fact, I will tell you this because I've got 3 daughters that are chiropractors, and they, when I was in school, and I graduated a little bit before you, I graduated in 81. We were told, hard bone, soft nerve, that kind of thing, and that was kind of the model that we were running with. And the model that the students are running with right now has nothing to do with that. It has to do with communication to the brain, CSF flow to the brain, because they see the nervous system contextually not as the spine from atlas down, but from the cerebellum down, right? And I think there's a big shift that is happening, right? But they're not the majority of chiropractors right now.
Well, and I think the shift needs to happen. Right now we're pigeonholed, and you see what's going on in Australia, you see what's going on right now in Canada, parts of Canada. We're so pigeonholed right now on, you can only take care of musculoskeletal issues. And the thing is, like you just said, Doc, the chiropractic adjustment, I speak to docs all the time. Well, yeah, I do some neurologically based stuff over here, and then I do my chiropractic. Guys, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? You perform an adjustment, you're affecting brain function.
Yeah.
But the question is your intent to change brain function, number one, and number two, does the patient know that?
Right. And that's monitoring. Can you monitor it? And we'll get into that. Can you monitor and actually see it objectively, right? And it's not hard to do that. In fact, I want to hear, we're going to teach what you're doing. I'll share with you later on what we've done, what, Mary and I did in our practice for 20 something years, when I started getting technology into the office. But let's talk about this before we move into that direction, because I do want to get into technology. I want to talk about the brain. I want to talk about objective findings, all that kind of stuff. Share your story. You got out of school in 93. You practiced for how many years?
17 years.
Yeah. And then what happened?
17 years, thinking, when I opened my doors, I thought, okay, man, I was going to crush it. I was going to conquer the world through chiropractic. Right. And I opened my doors. I had one patient my first 6 weeks, and a community that just now, obviously, things started happening, but I had people that just wanted me to take care of neck and low back pain. And an insurance model that said, you can only take care of neck and low back pain. So 17 years go by, and I tried everything that I could to get the people to understand that this was about more, right? They'd leave after 6, 7 visits. Their back pain was gone. They loved me, but I didn't love myself. And I'd be holding on to the legs. Don't leave. The good part is coming, right? The good part is still coming. And they'd be out. I had a PVA of 12, which, as you know, is not only a horrible business model, but a horrible healthcare model. And so I quit. After 17 years, I said, I'm done. I'm never doing this again. That's not what I signed up for. I had 7,000 patient files after 17 years, and I still needed more new patients to pay the bills. Yeah. Like ludicrous, right?
Yeah. So you were truly a pain-based practice, right?
Yeah. Not because I wanted to be, but because that's what paid the bills. And this is what I find with most docs is they get into this system, if you will. Well, I've got to pay the bills. I got a mortgage. I got a family I got to raise, and these people are coming in to get rid of back pain. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. And then they're out. And so I was constantly stressed. I used to have a full head of hair, right? So probably play like you, but I was constantly looking for new patients. And so I quit. I said, I'm done. I'm never doing this again. I set out. I was going to change the world in other ways. So we set a goal of performing 1 million acts of kindness in 1 year. We actually hit 2.8 million acts of kindness in 1 year, which was amazing, but it made zero money. And so I was broke. I didn't want to get back into chiropractic. And so I started selling Kirby vacuum cleaners door to door.
Wow.
How embarrassing was that, man?
Wow. In Portland.
In Portland, Maine, yeah.
So did you 7,000 files? You had to hit a couple of those files, right?
Oh, yeah. So I had family members and other people that knew I was a chiropractor saying, "What the heck are you doing? Like, what's going on?" Right? And so I got a letter from my grandmother one day my Christian grandmother is 85 years old, 3 pages long. I still have it to this day, basically saying, and the line that resonates with me is, you should be ashamed of yourself, and I'm ashamed of you for not living to your potential. Mm. And I was pissed. I was so upset with her. And I'm like, that's it. I like, my relationship with my grandma is done. And like 2 days later, I'm like, you know what? No, she's right. And so I got back into chiropractic, but this time I changed the focus 100% brain-based instead of being pain-based.
Right. So how'd you do that? What was that process like, switching like that?
Everything changed. What came out of my mouth changed. First off, what had to change was up here, right? I had to surround myself with the research, the brain-based research. I had to surround myself with the testimonials that were brain-based, that were not just pain-based, but I was seeing things like erectile dysfunction reversing, seeing a chiropractor, anxiety reverse, like stuff I hadn't seen in 17 years. I've only seen neck and low back pain and an occasional headache. And so I surrounded myself with this stuff, with the science and the testimonials and other doctors that were more what I call brain-based. And so it changed in here. And then so when I opened up, I had $1,000 to my name, 750 square foot office space. I went from 0 to 500 patient visits a week in 6 months. I'd never seen more than 130 a week in my previous 17 years. And it was all started here. And then it was what comes out of my mouth. I wasn't talking about pain. I was talking about the brain and nervous system. My care plans were designed around the brain and nervous system. My assessments were designed around the brain and nervous system. It was no pain. Stuff in my walls, everything was directed around improving brain and nervous system function.
Right. And then from that, you developed, obviously, True Chiro, right? And movement, which we can get to later. But talk about where you're at right now. So when we talk about brain function, right? We talked earlier about you have to measure it, because we could it's the same thing, right? Oh, I feel better. Yeah. Does that mean you're truly better? I feel like I'm breathing better. Well, are you really breathing better? Or I'm thinking better, or I'm clearer, but is it really there? Right. And I'm not saying that they aren't, or they are, but we need to have objective measures. We need to know that we know that we know, not just the patient, but the chiropractor, right? Practice member needs to see it also for the educational portion, and also to know, hey, this is where you were and this is where you are. Talk about that, how you incorporated it and what you're doing with it.
Well, to your point, though, real quick, I come across docs all, we don't need research. We know chiropractic works. We don't need we don't need to measure this. We know chiropractic works. I mean, come on. This is what's happening now in Australia and parts of Canada. Like this is old school stuff. Okay. We've got to move into the 21st century, and we've got to measure it. And so what we do, we have instrumentation that actually measures the brain and nervous system during stress. So we talk about allostasis. Going back to what you said earlier, BJ would be all about the brain. There's a term that I love that was developed in the late 1980s. It's called allostasis. Mm-hmm. Most chiropractors don't know what it means. They've never heard of it, but most docs know about homeostasis, right? Well, allostasis takes it to a new level. Allostasis is the ability for the brain and nervous system to maintain homeostasis during stress and then during recovery. See, things change.
Right.
See, when I ask docs, someone comes in, they've got a pulse of 66 beats per minute. Oh, they're good. Their heart health is good, right? But if the fire alarm goes off and their pulse doesn't go up, is that a problem? Okay, that's allostasis, right? And if it does go up, but then it doesn't come back down, is that a problem?
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's brain and nervous system adaptability, right? And so that's what we do.
Right. And when you talk about that, you see that when you move from a pain based practice, right? All of a sudden what we're talking about is really not so much, we always want to get the optimal potential, but it's also how do you adapt? Because people can walk in. I can, listen, we used to do in our office, we did a ton of objective measures. And one thing we did was spirometry, where we'd have them blow into a spirometer and we'd see where they were. And what we found was some of the top athletes, the marathon runners, they had their lung capacity, vital lung capacity was really weak. And people who were like 100 pounds overweight, on sitting on the couch eating bonbons, Yo-Hos, and watching Oprah and The View all day, they were like, off the charts, but it didn't mean they were healthy. It's just one indicator. But then you'd see what would change over the course of 4 weeks of care. not focused on spirometry, just focused on the nervous system, right? Brain and nervous system. And my gosh, the changes that were there were just amazing. And I bring that up because we've got to have measures so that we can see that. And I know that, you're doing that right now. So share with us some of the things you're doing.
Well, one thing that we do is we have an instrument called the Neuroinfinity, and it measures 7 different areas of physiologic function. You're talking about just one area, lung capacity, but we measure heart rate variability. We measure heart rate, respiration rate, skin conductance, hand temperature, SCMG of the traps, while at the same time actually measuring EEG. Like, this can be done right in the office, right? In a 12-minute assessment during 4 different stressors and 4 different recovery periods. And the reason that's important is because someone comes in, I know a lot of HRV units out there right now, you take an HRV for 2 or 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, but they're just sitting there relaxed.
Right.
Is that life? That's not real life. What happens when this person is all of a sudden under stress? What happens if they're under emotional stress? What happens to their HRV? What happens when they're under a cognitive stress? What happens to their HRV? And what we find is it changes.
Yeah.
And so that's going to help us then develop a care plan that's going to improve the adaptability of the brain and nervous system, and then be able to track it, which is important, right? Docs say to me, listen, I've got something looking over my shoulder to make sure I am providing the right care for this patient. And that's important, especially when, the first time I measured my wife, I had been caring for her primary care provider for years. And we did an actual test of her brain and nervous system, and I was blown away. I almost started crying.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy cow, what have I been doing?
That's right. And with objective measures, you can actually guide it. And I think the important thing too is that, listen, I got an iWatch, right? Or whatever you call an Apple Watch, right? I switched over from, my wife had me wearing a Whoop. That's what she wears. And I got off of that and I went to this thing. I wake up. The first thing I look at is this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got an app now that it talks to, right? I wake up, I see, how did I sleep? How was my HRV? How did I do? How was my heart rate, from when I went to bed? And what was my dip like? What's my SpO2? And I want to know this stuff.
Man, people do today.
Everyone does. Come on. It's all, we are an information technology. This is what society is today. And it's just baffles me, that people don't do this continually in their office. I mean, dude, we are setting up right now it's already set up, a technology room at the college, and every student will be going in there and learning this stuff, learning thermography, SCMG, all these different things that we have in there, right? And then then they have to use that in the health center with their patients, and use it for re-exams. Yeah. I mean, but it's really understanding. Clint, have you seen this? Do you see that there's a fear with doctors trying to, implement instrumentation because if it doesn't show changes, then they're worried what their patients are going to think?
Is there a trend? Is that what you said?
No. Did you see that is there a fear that?
Oh, yeah. As soon as I said someone's looking over my shoulder, some docs want that. Some docs will be like, no, I don't want that, because there's a fear about it, right? And so one of the things we do, going back to technology, we've got another technology that's 6 minutes, unattended, non-invasive technology that actually measures the prefrontal cortex. And you can actually measure this. We call it a brain score. You can measure pre and post adjustment to see if you perform the right type of adjustment. In fact, we did some research in Boise when we were at the conference together. We probably had 30 or 40 participants that got that had a brain score. They got adjusted, and they come back and they got another brain score. And we found the majority of those brain scores went up, but when the wrong type of adjustment was performed, their brain score didn't go up, which is very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. And the thing is this, and I think that our viewers need to know this: when you use technology like that, or any kind of technology, if you don't get the change, the patients are not going to leave. They want the change also.
Totally.
So it's like, okay, listen, I'm not blaming myself. I'm not blaming you. We just got to keep working at this. And the other thing it does is it just reinforces how great chiropractic is.
Oh, man.
Because people get changes.
You just sent chills down my arms. Seriously, this is the power. This is the power of chiropractic. And I get up in front of stages, boys, you probably heard me. I was screaming at the top of my lungs, man. People are dying right now because they don't know what we do.
Yeah.
And when you can show them that a chiropractic adjustment, a single chiropractic adjustment improves brain function, man, and they see their parents, dying of Alzheimer's or dementia, and they see their kids struggling in school because of ADD and ADHD and focus problems. And they're like, holy cow, like this is powerful. I need to get my kids in here. I need to get my parents in here. I need to get my siblings in here, right? This is what happens when people start moving from pain to brain. It opens up their whole world. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's so cool too, because you actually lived the transformation. I mean, selling Kirby vacuum cleaners, because you had a pain-based practice and I'm going to contest something that you said. You said, I didn't want it. You wanted it. That's what you had, man. You didn't do anything to change it back then. So obviously, yeah, we always want something different. But the bottom line was it's what you needed to do, I think, in order to be where you are now and teach hundreds and hundreds and thousands of chiropractors that there's another way to practice that you can objectify and that you can really take out and make something good with, right? And really make a difference in people's lives.
It's one of those things that when you're going through it, it's like, holy cow, like what, God, why am I going through this, man? And I have this saying now, things are always working out for me, right? Yeah. No matter what happens, it's working out for my good for some reason. And now I can look back and you're totally right, man. Like there was a purpose behind it. And now I know, and that's my mission, man, is to change and help chiropractors. Doc, more than I do probably that there's docs out there struggling, that they don't need to be struggling, man. Mm-hmm. Like this is what we have is so amazing. And there's no reason any chiropractor needs to be struggling right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially today. From everything we know about the brain, everything we know about the nervous system, what drives me crazy is that when we're still doing research on low back pain or still doing research on, tissue stuff, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. All of our research should be focused on immune system response, should be focused on, all these, brain function, everything that we're doing. At the college, we're only doing biomarker research. That's it. Like we're doing HRV research, we're moving. I think they want to move into a sleep study showing chiropractic and sleep, all the things that we can prove objectively with biomarkers that show that there's a physiological change in the body. As soon as our India clinic opens up, we're looking to do immunoglobulin A studies where we have a medical clinic next door. So they'll draw blood out of the patient. The osteopaths did this, draw blood out of a patient, and then they go and get adjusted, come back and draw blood out of them again. And they can see the change in the immunoglobulin A, which shows that there is a direct effect on the immune system, right? And the osteopaths did this years ago, and they showed a change right after a manipulation, an osteopathic, but they never took it further. I want to take it to 1 week, 3 weeks, totally. 6 weeks, 6 months, and to be able to see that. And, I love it because we should be monitoring the brain also. This is such great stuff.
This is why I love you, man. This is why I love you, buddy. You just like charge me up, man. Like, let's go, right?
Well, if you walked in my office 25 years ago, you would have been on, of course, you would have had an EMG, thermography, bilateral scales, computerized, everything was just computerized, right? But the coolest thing we had was called, I got to think of what it was called because it was called Medat Tech. It was made out of Israel, and I saw it in Barcelona, Spain at Mark Hudson's program there. And it was just amazing. The guy ended up his son ended up becoming a chiropractor, because he was at the chiropractic conference. Neurologists used it. You stood on it and measured your sway patterns, right? What stood on it, eyes open, eyes closed, one leg, eyes open, the other leg, eyes open, the one leg, eyes closed, other leg. And it just showed people that how your brain is communicating, down your spinal cord, your feet back up, and what your risk of fall is. They use it, neurologists use it like that, but we use it to be able to show, look and see what your nervous system is doing.
Yeah, totally.
And under care, they would just, boom, get like this. Not overnight, but that's what also told them they need care. You can't change these things, overnight like that. It's just not going to happen. Pro football players come in and just say, can I get tested? I want to just wait. Your exam's going to be in 3 weeks, kind of thing. It's just incredible. But everybody wanted to know.
People want to know. Well, we get lines. I mean, you saw in Boise, we get lines of people wanting to know their brain score. Yeah. Same thing with patients. Patients want to know their brain score. And then there's a competition. Their spouses want to come in, or their kids or their siblings or coworkers want to come in. I want to see what my brain score is too. But you touched on something, Ron. And I had an interview with Dr. Michael Longyear the other day from Life. just an amazing chiropractor, but he's like, we're this close, right? We're this close because we're measuring SCMG, we're measuring, bilateral weight scales. We're doing this stuff, but are we bringing it back to the brain and nervous system?
Yeah.
Or do people just think, one leg's bigger than the other, so that's why my scale, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like we're just missing it by that much. We just need that little extra to actually measure the brain and nervous system to tie this all together, whether it's x-rays, rolling thermal, bilateral weight scales, posture, whatever it is. When these all improve, we know brain function is improving. Now, if we can actually measure the brain and tie it all together, man, it's a home run.
It is a home run. I love what you're doing, man. And thank you for being the warrior out there, taking this to every stage and being able to share that, because it's incredible. We're winding down. I just want to ask you a quick question, because obviously, we'll say that you're over on the, the dark side. Now you're on the light or the force or whatever you want to call it, in the path you're traveling, and I don't think that docs who are in the pain model understand how heavy it is on their own system, and how they can see 20 people a day or 15 people a day and be exhausted, and they look across the street, there's someone seeing a bunch of people a day, and they get out of the office ready to go and excited, right? Because it's what's happening up here, right? Like, what are we focusing on? And I do know when we focus on pain all day, it takes something out of us, it really does, and you went through it. Now you're on the whole opposite side where it's, it's more about, people just improving their health, improving their lives, and seeing it visually. What's your vision? What would you like to see for chiropractic in 20, 30 years, like, or 10 years? It doesn't matter, but what's your vision on where you see us moving, or just what Clint's hallucination is?
My hallucination is that the world hears the word chiropractor, and instead of thinking spine doctors or back pain doctors, they're thinking brain and nervous system doctors, right? This is where I need to go to begin with. Instead of surgery or medication, I need to get the foundation of my health taken care of first before I address anything else. You ask patients, what coordinates every function in your entire body? 95% of them are going to say the brain and nervous system. Mm-hmm. And so why are we not starting with that? Let's get the world to understand that the brain and nervous system is the foundation of health, and the specialists when it comes to the brain and nervous system are chiropractors.
Absolutely.
That's my hallucination.
I love it, man. And what that means is we just got to do a mental enema. We just got to flush that thing once, get it through the chiropractors, and the next thing you know, now we can start talking, because the truth is, it's what we work with. And Clint, I appreciate you so much, man. I appreciate you're a road warrior right now. You're all over the place. You're just in Boise. I think you're in Denver, and then now you're in wherever, Southern Cal, and I don't know where you're going next. But because when you get back to Maine, it's hard to get out. I know that you got people waiting to see you, and and Maine's the winter's coming there. But I want to just say thank you, man. Thank you for all you're doing for chiropractic. Thank you for not quitting, not giving up on chiropractic. Chiropractic never gave up on you. And thank you for taking the message that you're doing now and being able to transform the lives of chiropractors, but also transform the lives of the thousands and thousands of people that they will see, and then those people will tell. So it's, BJ said it, you never know how far reaching something you may say, think, or do today can affect the lives of millions tomorrow. And it's really what it's about. So stay on the road, keep doing that, stay in your hotel. And I appreciate you, brother. Doing a great job. Absolutely. And to our viewers, thank you. Thank you for hanging in. You'll see a bunch of links that were on the bottom. Just go to those links, man, and check out, what Dr. Clint's up to, where you can find out better information on brain-based, chiropractic. And I think the bigger thing, I think the takeaway for me just today, and I hope you got the same thing, was that we can always do better. Always, no matter where we are right now, you can always do better. So keep looking at ways to improve, keep looking at ways of bringing more things into your office that you can use, so that you can use for yourself to know that what you're doing is working phenomenally, and your patients get the benefit of watching it also, so that they can see how their bodies are changing too. Because chiropractic works 100% of the time, right? Sometimes we don't, the chiropractor, but chiropractic works. And never worry about, if I get this equipment, I can't use it because it's not going to show changes. It will, and you will get better at what you do. So I love and appreciate you. We drop these leadership lines every other week. The opposite weeks, we do the Life by Life West with myself and my wife, Dr. Mary. Join in on those. Thank you for sharing these. Share this with someone. I guarantee you there's someone in your sphere who's thinking about quitting. You don't know it, but they're thinking about quitting. So just share it, okay? And you know, we're growing this army of chiropractors, and we're all part of it, and we can really take health out to the world. I'll be back at you again next week with another episode. We love and appreciate you. These are also now podcasts, so you'll be able to catch them on my podcast, which will be down at the bottom of the screen. And we just love and appreciate you. Keep yourself going. And until we see you next time, take care of the ones you love, but most of all, take care of yourself. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.